Hi guys. Um, this week's readings really made me think about how all the parts of theater are connected. Music, sound, movement, visuals, staging, and technical coordination all work together to tell a story. I've realized how much intentional choices in each area can change the way a performance feels, especially with my middle schoolers. In chapter 8, Katrin talks about how music and sound aren't just background, they actively tell a story. That really stuck out to me because I've seen how sound can guide both performers and the audience. Within the last week or so, I've really been reminiscing on Winnie the Pooh, which is a show I did with my middle schoolers, because I finally got my yearbook and I saw all the pictures from it. So, for example, in one scene of Winnie the Pooh, we used a soft buzzing sound near the honey pot when Pooh was trying to sneak off with honey, and it helped Pooh time her actions, which added a little suspense without dialogue. In another scene, we used leaves rustling to help Piglet react nervously when she thought that the woozle was chasing after her, and the audience could feel the tension in the forest. We even used, a playful trumpet cue when Rabbit was rushing around, as Rabbit does, which made the energy pop and it helped the students know exactly when to move. The small sounds didn't just fill silence, they gave the students the confidence and structure to make the story come alive. Chapter 9 on spectacle really made me think about how powerful visuals are. Katrin points out that sets, props, and costumes aren't just decoration. They tell a story and communicate character and setting. In our production of Winnie the Pooh, we used cardboard cutouts for the trees and for the scenery and for a lot of the props. And it created this storybook feeling. The audience felt like they were stepping right into a child's imagination. One of my favorite examples was, the party scene. Each student was supposed to wrap a present the way their character would do it. Pooh Bear brought a poorly wrapped honey pot that was obviously supposed to be for Pooh Bear, but he was playing it off that it was, a present for someone else. Rabbit had a perfectly wrapped gift. Kanga and Roo brought a bag labeled from Roo in big red Sharpie, but you could see like through the tissue paper and how well put together it was. It was definitely prepared by Kanga. And Eeyore didn't wrap anything. It was a card and she just threw it on the table. Um and they're small details, but it really communicated so much about their personalities and their character without dialogue. The students also, helped cut out and paint the set. The set was supposed to be out of Christopher Robin's imagination, and who better to be inside a kid's imagination than my middle schoolers at that point? They were also given creative freedom over their costumes. I gave them very few parameters on what their costumes had to be like. I had to tell them that because Winnie the Pooh is owned by Disney, they couldn't use the costumes close to what the show looks like. So they really had to come up with their own costumes. The actress who played Pooh wore a pair of khaki pants, a white shirt, a khaki vest, and a brown bucket hat that her dad sewed little bear ears onto. And Piglet wore a big pink pageant dress. It really added to their characters in the way that they wanted to bring them to life. It led to the kids feeling like they owned their characters because they had choices over their costumes. And letting the students help paint and assemble props or, give them that creative freedom for their costumes made them feel like the world was theirs. Um, Chapter 16 moved on to the ground plan, and it really just kind of tied everything together. Katrin emphasizes that the layout of the stage guides movement, pacing, and audience focus. In middle school theater, this is really important because my students are still learning to be aware of the stage and of each other. Marking entrances, exits, and key positions during rehearsal made a big difference. In one of the chase scenes, the ground plan helped students move around props and cutouts without getting in each other's way, which really kept the energy high and kept the audience engaged. In another quiet scene, uh, spacing really helped communicate the emotional distress between Piglet and Pooh. Having the layout organized also made the students feel more confident because they knew exactly where to be and when to be there. And that freed them up to focus on their characters. They weren't worried about, oh, if I take 2 steps to the left, am I going to bump into someone? They could really just think about, their lines and their characters and being in the moment. Uh, Finally, moving on to Bogman, chapter 6. It was on coordinating technical elements, and it reminded me how important it is for all the parts to really just work together. Music, sound, props, lighting, and set changes, they all have to be coordinated. Clear communication, checklists, and cue sheets really make this manageable, especially, with my middle schoolers. When I started, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't use cue sheets. I didn't really use any checklists. I just kind of wrote everything on my script, and it was a hot mess. I had no clue what was going on half the time. I couldn't decipher my own notes, which, first time doing this, I didn't really think too much about it. And I suffered because of it. And now I use all of these things, and it's helped so much with that aspect. But I've still had moments where a sound cue or a prop were assigned to the same student, and rehearsing ahead of time, prevents confusion of, oh no, I have two things going on. What do I need to do? I've seen a lighting cue fail mid scene, and the students have to improvise on the spot, which is really hard for middle schoolers because they do not like change. But those moments teach problem solving and teamwork. Even simple things like assigning roles for a costume change with a checklist really help the students feel responsible and keep the show moving. Flexibility is key, and those moments often teach students way more than rehearsed perfection ever could. Teaching them how to, flip the switch if something happens, it's going to help them outside of theater as well. Overall, the chapters really reminded me that every element of a production matters. Sound, movement, visuals, staging, and technical coordination all support the story. And when students are involved in each element, it strengthens the production and teaches them responsibility. Teaches them collaboration, creativity, and even confidence. Thinking about these readings makes me think about how I'm going to be more intentional in planning rehearsals, guiding students in blocking and timing, and helping them interact with prop sets and cues. Theater isn't just about lines. It's not just about acting. It's about building a world that the audience can really step into. And giving the students the tools and confidence to bring that world to life is one of the most rewarding parts of directing.